Hello and welcome to MissouriNet.com. I'm Bill Pollack, sports director here at the network, along with Jason West from MSHSAA. And we're back for another Google Hangout. A couple of days late, but we're still glad to be with Jason. Busy a couple of weeks coming up for you. Of course, we just got through basketball, and we had talked about that for a couple of weeks. I guess let's maybe work our way from backwards to forwards here. You have a MSHSAA conference that's going to be coming up. Talk about that organization and, first of all, how MSHSAA is involved and what your purpose is.
Well, the MSHSAA is essentially the Athletic Directors Association for the state. So we encourage, and obviously they encourage, all athletic directors from even junior high all the way through high school to be a member of this association. And each year they have their annual meeting. It's held over 3 days down at Tantera on the lake. And it's a very good opportunity for athletic directors to get together away from sporting events and school settings and can network and really go over, well, this is what we do at our place, and it seems to work well for us. And they can kind of give and take ideas and programs that they've done at the local level and maybe take something back to other schools and start similar projects or things there. Anything from captain corners to Hall of Fames and things like that. So it's a really good networking opportunity. Along with that, they bring in some keynote speakers from, they've had Randy Horton with the Cardinals and former athletes to motivational speakers. They've had athletic attorneys come in to talk about legal aspects of intercollegiate sports or interscholastic sports, things like that. So it's a really good opportunity to get a lot of information in a short period. They also have a vendors area, exhibition area where vendors come in from sporting goods stores and uniform companies and things like that. And so kind of a one-stop shop for ADs that may be looking for new uniforms or software to help them do their jobs a little better, things like that. So it's a really neat experience for those members and things like that to come together and get a lot of information where there's not the supervision of kids and things like that.
And when and where does that take place?
That's down at Tantera Resort in Osage Beach, and that is going to be the 10th through the 12th of April.
All right, very good. Now, as I mentioned, we wrapped up the basketball championships over the last couple of weeks. You're now looking for proposals for hosting those championships. Had are you at in that process with high school basketball?
Well, on the basketball side of things, last Monday we had the public opening for the RFPs and the proposals that possible venues and cities submitted. We had 3 proposals. One was directly from the Family Arena in St. Charles, and then there was one from the City of Columbia in combination with University of Missouri for using Mizzou Arena and the Hearn Center, like we've done for the past several years. And then Springfield, CVB, along with Missouri State University, submitted a proposal to use the John Q.H. Arena and then the Hammonds Student Center as well. So we've scheduled a couple of site visits there to look at those properties, and we'll hopefully be doing that early next week so we can have an update for the Board of Directors meeting next weekend.
So then you will take, if I'm correct on how this will happen, you'll take those recommendations for the board meeting, and then is that when a decision is made as to the venue site, or are there other steps in the process then?
For basketball, in all likelihood, the decision will be made at next week's board meeting. That's why we were wanting to get as much information together as soon as possible. That way we can go ahead and make that decision there and move forward for that so everyone knows where that venue is going to be for. And we still have one more year at Mizzou Arena and Hearn Center in the current contract. This would be for the following school year.
Do you have any insight as to what they're doing with Hearn Center in the future? Are they going to tear that thing down, or what have you heard? Because I'm trying to figure out what the next steps are for that place.
Haven't really heard anything updated. I know for a few years that was the ultimate conclusion for the Hearn Center as they're building more on-site and on-campus facilities. They've already broken ground for the new softball complex there just right next to the Hearn Center. So I have not heard any definitive line of when the Hearn Center may go away, but that is what we had heard for a few years now.
Do you ever, when I say you, MSHSAA, we're talking with Jason West, the communications director from MSHSAA. Does MSHSAA ever get feedback from teams, from other coaches, from athletic directors on championship sites? Not necessarily even Mizzou, but just on anything in terms of the venue or the facilities, that type of stuff. Does that ever come into the equation at all as to what teams are thinking of where they play these championships at?
We certainly try to reach out to some. Obviously, it's not something that we put out a survey to everyone, but definitely do try to get feedback to the schools that are at any particular type of venue, be it the softball or volleyball or even track and field, cross country, and try to get a feel for what they didn't like, any improvements, and certainly travel, lodging, and the locales information is something we do try to get from those teams to see if there are improvements that can be made. Sometimes there's things that are out of our control, like the host city has 2 or 3 things going on that same weekend, and so it puts a premium on hotels. That's something we try to avoid and ask those host communities to kind of block that weekend out, but those are unavoidable sometimes. So those are things that we do look at and try to reach out. That was one thing we did with the volleyball championships a few years ago when the decision was made to go to Cape Girardeau. Travel was a big factor there, and trying to see how much of a burden that's going to be for the teams that are actually making it to that championship. And so those are some of the questions we do kind of reach out to some of the people that have been there for a few years, or the opinions that we know will be constructive.
Now, I know another venue that you're looking at will be for football, and of course, there's some different things that come into play. The Rams are no longer in St. Louis, so that's something that has to be considered. And this was something that is done, if I remember from our conversations in the past, was more of a year-to-year thing, because you kind of had to work around the Rams' schedule to make sure that the Dome was going to be available. So this was more of a year-to-year thing in terms of football. Where are you at right now in that process?
Well, actually, tomorrow is the deadline for venues and sites to submit their proposals. We have gotten one proposal already from the St. Louis CDC and using the Dome. So we're looking forward to seeing how many others we'll get tomorrow. And I believe that is tomorrow afternoon when we'll open those and see what other venues are interested in hosting the Show Me Bowl.
In the past, how many cities or venues would you hear from?
Well, this is the really the first time we've done this with football, and so being that the championships were at the Dome for so long, we never had done anything formal like this to know how many options are out there. That being said, we certainly, Mike Alden, when he was AD at Mizzou, would call up every couple of years and say, hey, we'd love to have the football championships at Faroe Field. And at that time, our response was, as soon as you put a roof on it, we'll be able to talk more. But so we have had inquiries like that in the past, but unfortunately we've never had a formal process like this for football, so we really don't know how many people would be interested.
Now, if you have just the one proposal, do you expect to get any other proposals, since Friday would be, or I guess it'd be Thursday? It would be, well, wait a minute, today is Thursday. I'm all screwed up with the
Friday. Our schedule's all screwed up this week.
So Friday would be the deadline. So do you anticipate other proposals coming in if you've only had one so far?
We've had, I would say, a lot of interest, but typically what we have seen when we have our public openings for whatever sport or venue it's for, be it volleyball, softball, or basketball, there's typically at least a couple of people that will walk their proposal in on the day, so they're here for the public opening. We've even seen that with our ball contracts and those sponsorships. Some of the people like to be there so they can, once we open them, Craig Long, our Chief Financial Officer, will kind of go through the proposal that we just opened and hit the highlights. And so the other people in the room would like, that gives them the ability to compare and contrast their bid against the other bids on the table.
Well, all right. Let's kind of take us through this then, kind of outline what this is going to look like then on Friday. This is really pretty fascinating.
It can be, I think, but typically what we're in our boardroom sitting around the table, and we'll have 5 or 6 people maybe from one given, Springfield CVB may bring 5, Columbia CVB may have 4 or 5 people, which may or may not include someone from the respective universities, as far as a facilities manager or something like that. Will come. If it's a ball contract, obviously the companies will send 2 or 3 people respectively, and most of them will either like FedEx their proposals in or drop them off, maybe go eat lunch and come back, so they make sure that they're in by the deadline, be it in the morning or in the afternoon. And then we just sit in open boxes. It's kind of like Christmas morning. And so we'll open, okay, this is the proposal from Springfield. We'll open it up, and Craig will look through it and say, okay, rental will be this much for this year with a 4% increase each year, or and just kind of hit the high notes as he's looking through their proposal. And then once he kind of does that, then he'll get the next box, open it up. Okay, here's Columbia's proposal, and again hit the highlights, and then that's it. Sometimes if we, while they're there, we may go ahead and say, okay, what are some dates for us to come visit your venue, and go ahead and knock that out, or the the administrator for that sport or activity will get with the key contact people and set up those site visits, so we can actually see and start the idea process of how the championship would work at that particular venue, face to face, instead of doing it over the phone or things like that.
Now, one question that people watching this may have is, I'll just say venues. Do venues have, is it one shot? You got one shot, you bring your proposal in. If it's good, great. If it wasn't good enough, that's it. Or is there negotiating? Is there anything that goes back and forth like that? Or is it just a one shot, that's it, and you'll pick your venue and move on?
Once, yes and no. There's no negotiating once we open the bids. Our expectation is the venue or the host site would put their best foot forward in the proposal. And that's why we have the public openings. We don't open anything. We don't look through anything that we receive prior to that day, just to eliminate that thought process of, okay, well, I've got Springfield's proposal. Columbia's called and asked, what if they do this? What if they do that? Now I can start comparing and contrasting before we open it up, and even get into any type of bidding war. We have had instances where people have been at the public opening, they've heard what is on the table, but not all parties were involved in putting that proposal together. So they'll call the next day and say, well, what if we can do this? And, we have this much money that the community has donated to get you here. Would that change everything? And we have to say, well, it probably would have yesterday, but it's not going to change it now. We're going to take your proposals and make them as much of apples versus apples as we can and present that to the board. That being said, once the board and the staff have made their recommendations and we've selected a host site, now we may go to that host site and say, okay, you said it's going to cost us this much for catering. What if we do this or that? Or, and maybe there's some negotiations at that point once the site has been finalized. But during the selection process, there's no negotiations. We expect that best foot to be put forward at the time of the proposals.
All right. Well, see, that was a good question by me. That was good. So anybody watching this now, no funny bit. There's no monkey business at all with this. This is all transparent, above the table. And so you at least know going in how that's it. That's a great answer, Jason. That was good. All right. So we're all we're all
one for the day.
What was that?
There's my one for the day.
All right. We actually did something on this hangout. That's a great way to conclude. Now, so when does football, when do we know for sure? When are we going to break that news?
Well, being that we'll open them tomorrow, and then we have a board meeting next Friday and Saturday, we'd like to get as much information available to the board, at least to give them an update. We hope to have the basketball finalized at this board meeting, but with depending on how many proposals we get tomorrow for football, there may be several site visits that we'll need to make. And so we'll discuss it with the board next weekend at the April meeting, but I wouldn't look for a finalized decision until the next board meeting, which is in June.
All right. Now, can you speculate at all as to how many proposals you might get for football?
Based on the number of inquiries, and actually we had a couple of inquiries that received the information, and then once they received the information, they decided that they didn't want to go. So, looking 4 or 5, maybe even 6 proposals tomorrow, but that again, that may be on the high side once people start looking at their schedules and for the upcoming years.
All right, good stuff. Interesting. All right, one more question. All these questions are popping into my head here. I'm going to throw one more at you. You talked about Mike Alden when he was the director of athletics at Mizzou, coming to you every couple of years. Has Mac Rhodes reached out to you, the new athletic director?
He has actually. I know he and Kerwin are trying to meet up to be able to get to know each other and kind of have that first introductory meeting, and they keep kind of two ships in the night passing each other and haven't been able to meet face to face yet. But I know Mac has reached out, and we're trying to get everybody together.
All right, good stuff. All right, well, we'll certainly be following this, keeping an eye on this to see what happens with football and then basketball a couple of years down the road. Jason West, the communications director from MSHSAA, as always, thanks for your time. Great insight.
No problem. Thank you, Bill.
Yep, and we'll catch up with you next week and kind of see where we're at in this process. In the meantime, you can always check out MSHSAA.org and MissouriNet.com. Thanks for watching us, and we'll talk to you again real soon.